They shut off my water because my mailbox was half an inch too tall. Half an inch. Welcome to Pinewood Estates, where the HOA rules with an iron fist and a tape measure. I'm Jake Larson, a 42-year-old utility engineer who's lived in this cookie-cutter suburban hell for 3 years. Pinewood is the kind of place where every lawn is mowed to exactly 2.5 inches. Every house is painted in one of 3 approved shades of beige, and stepping out of line gets you a fine faster than you can say community standards. I moved here after my divorce, thinking a quiet neighborhood would give me a fresh start. Big mistake. The HOA, led by Marge Whitaker, a self-appointed dictator with a perm and a vendetta, had other plans. Marge and her posse of clipboard-wielding enforcers patrolled the streets like they owned them, slapping fines on anything that didn't fit their vision of perfection. My sin, a mailbox. I built myself sturdy, cedar, a little rustic, and apparently 0.5 inches taller than regulation. I got a notice taped to my door, correct violation or face penalties. I laughed it off. Then my water stopped running. It wasn't just me. The HOA had been tightening the screws on everyone. Old Mrs. Carter got fined for planting daisies instead of tulips. The Nguyen family was threatened with eviction over a basketball hoop. But shutting off my water, that was a new low. I stood in my kitchen, turning the faucet to nothing but a sad sputter, and felt my blood boil. I'm not just some guy who fixes pipes. I'm the senior engineer at the county utility department. I oversee the water grid for all of Pinewood. Marge didn't know who she was messing with. The trouble started 2 weeks ago. I'd been working late at the utility office, tweaking pressure valves to keep the town's water flowing smoothly. I got home to find a neon yellow notice on my door. Marge's signature scrawled at the bottom like she was signing a death warrant. Mailbox height violation. Rectify within 48 hours or utilities will be suspended. I thought it was a bluff. HOAs don't control utilities. Right, wrong. Pinewood's HOA had a shady deal with a private contractor who managed our water lines. One call from Marge, and they'd flip a switch. I ignored the notice, figuring I'd deal with it after my shift. Big mistake number 2. The next morning, my shower was dry. My coffee maker mocked me with an empty pot. I stormed outside, wrench in hand, ready to check the main valve by my curb. That's when I saw Marge standing across the street in her HOA-branded polo, smirking like she just won a war. Fix the mailbox. Jake, she called, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Rules are rules. I wanted to scream, but I held it together. I'm not a hothead, but I'm no pushover either. I spent that day at work, not just fixing the grid, but digging into Pinewood's utility contract. What I found made my jaw drop. The HOA's contractor was overcharging the neighborhood, skimming profits, and Marge was getting kickbacks. She wasn't just a control freak, she was corrupt. I started asking questions. Quietly. I talked to my buddy Tom, a county clerk who owed me a favor. He pulled records showing Marge's contractor buddy, Vince Russo, had been funneling HOA fines into a shell company. They were shaking down residents to line their pockets. My mailbox wasn't the issue. It was an excuse to flex power. I tried reasoning with Marge, knocking on her door with a printout of the county's utility regulations. You can't shut off my water, I said, keeping my voice steady. It's illegal. She didn't even look at the papers. File a complaint. Jake, she sneered, slamming the door. So I did something better. I started a group chat with my neighbors. The chat blew up. Mrs. Carter shared how she'd been fined $500 for her daisies. The Nguyen said they'd paid $2,000 to avoid eviction. People were pissed, and for the first time, Pinewood wasn't just rolling over. We held a secret meeting in my garage. 20 of us crammed between my toolbox and a stack of old tires. I laid out the evidence: Marge's kickbacks, the contractor's scam, the illegal utility shutoffs. We're not just fighting for my water, I said. We're fighting for all of us. That's when Sarah Nguyen, a quiet mom who'd never spoken up before, stood up. I'm a lawyer, she said, her voice shaking but firm. "I'll take this to court." The room erupted in cheers. That was the twist I didn't see coming. Pinewood had a secret weapon. The next week, things got ugly. Marge doubled down, sending her HOA goons to inspect every house. Fines poured in crooked shutters, unapproved welcome mats, even a kid's chalk drawing on a driveway. She thought she could scare us into submission. Instead, she lit a fuse. I wasn't just mad anymore, I was done. I had a card to play that Marge didn't know about. As the utility engineer, I had access to the master valve for Pinewood's water supply. It was a big, ugly thing, buried in a concrete vault in my backyard, a relic from when the neighborhood was built. I'd never touched it outside of routine maintenance, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to make a point. So I waited until dusk, when Marge and her crew were holding one of their compliance checks in the cul-de-sac. I grabbed my wrench, climbed into the vault, and turned the valve just enough to drop the pressure. Sprinklers sputtered, faucets coughed. The whole neighborhood felt it. I stepped onto my porch, arms crossed, and watched Marge's face go red as her phone lit up with complaints. "Fix it, Jake," she screamed, marching toward me with her clipboard like a weapon. That's when the neighbors showed up. They poured out of their houses, some holding signs that read, "Stop the show tyranny," and "Marge must go." Mrs. Carter, bless her, was waving a daisy like a battle flag. Sarah Nguyen stood beside me, holding a legal notice she'd drafted, ready to serve Marge right there. The water valve behind me was leaking now, spraying wild arcs across the lawn, soaking Marge's pristine polo. It was chaos, beautiful chaos, and someone, probably the Nguyen kids, caught it all on video. The clip went viral by morning, racking up 2 million views on X with hashtags like Wiledunon Hogan Wild and Maschan Pinewood Rebels. Marge was cornered, and she knew it. But then came the twist nobody expected. Vince Russo, the contractor, showed up in a shiny SUV, stepping into the fray like he owned the place. "This is my grid," he barked, pointing at me. "You're fired. Larson." The crowd went silent. I hadn't told anyone. But Vince wasn't just Marge's buddy, he was her brother-in-law. The scam was a family affair. I laughed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Fired, good luck with that. Vince, I don't work for you. I work for the county." His face fell as the neighbors roared, closing in around him. Sarah handed him the legal notice, and the crowd chanted, "No more fines, no more lies." The fallout was swift. The viral video caught the county's attention, and an investigation was launched. Marge and Vince were exposed, their kickback scheme laid bare in Ascending Triangle. The county terminated the HOA's contract with Vince's company, and I got to personally flip the switch to restore full water pressure to Pinewood. Marge resigned in disgrace. Her HOA empire crumbled. Sarah's lawsuit moved forward, securing refunds for years of unfair fines. Pinewood wasn't just a neighborhood anymore, it was a community. We threw a block party, daisies in every yard, and my mailbox still half an inch too tall, standing proud. Karma's a funny thing. Marge thought she could control us, but she didn't realize we'd fight back. Pinewood's story spread, sparking debates on X about HOAs and power abuse. People shared their own horror stories, and for a moment, it felt like the whole country was rooting for us. We didn't just win our water back, we changed the conversation. What's your take? Ever had to stand up to a bully like Marge? Drop your story below. I'd love to hear it.